From Anderson. I live down in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, which is the Cherokee Nation capital. And as Arian said, Cherokee is in a different situation in terms of documentation compared to UDA. So we approached it in a somewhat different manner and kind of went fast through some of the initial steps, or maybe we go slower. We'll talk about that. But we've got lots of good documentation. Can you all hear me? Apparently I have a microphone on. Okay. So Cherokee is an Iroquoian language, which is this group in red, which is mostly in the north around the Great Lakes. Cherokee is this outlier. It's the sole member of the southern branch of Iroquoian, a Native American language. And it originally was part of the southeast culture area until the time of removal in the 1830s. And Cherokees are pretty well known in American history, not only for the removal, but also for creating the first American Indian writing system. And here's Sequoia from the 1820s with his syllabary. This is the syllabary chart. It has 85 characters, and they're mostly combinations of consonants and vowels. Some are just vowels, and this one little lonely character stands for the sound S, the fricative. So we use a little bit of the syllabary, but not too much. Maybe some of these guys who continue will do more with the syllabary. But because of the syllabary, the Cherokees got a printing press, and they started to print their constitution, religious materials, laws, all sorts of things in their language. And there was a high rate of literacy. They had the first Native American newspaper. Sorry, that should be capitalized, the N, which is the Cherokee Phoenix, which still publishes. I have a few here if you want. There's usually an article in the syllabary for issues. So if you want to read about news from Oklahoma, you can get one of these. And when the removal happened, the script came west with the Cherokees. This is my university. This is Seminary Hall. This was higher education for Indian women in 1850. And this was pretty progressive for the time. And it just had its 100th anniversary. So they put up this statue of Sequoia surrounded by his syllabary chart there. So there you can see the character for say, si, so, su, and sum. So it's just a syllabary chart there. And my office is just up here. And I teach a Cherokee grammar class, so there's actually literally a cheat sheet. The students look out the window. As a result of removal, there's 3 tribes. There's 2 in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, which is 5 hours to the south. And then there's the Eastern Band in North Carolina, back in the original homeland. So the Cherokee Nation, headquartered in Tahlequah, it's perhaps the largest Native American tribe, or it could be the Navajos, I'm not sure. And they take up 14 counties in northeastern Oklahoma. So all are part of 14 counties is their jurisdictional area, and Tahlequah is right about here. There's 40 tribes in Oklahoma. And here's some information just about the sociolinguistic situation. You can hear Cherokee spoken around in Tahlequah, but most people who do are going to be over the age of 40. So kids aren't being raised speaking it at home anymore. And if these trends continue, nobody's going to speak it in a couple of decades. Although there's a lot of revitalization activity going on. There's 9,000 speakers. Cherokee Nation spends about $5 million a year on language programs, which is more than the federal government for all Native American languages. They have an immersion school, a very nice facility, 6th grade, and there's a Bachelor of Arts at Northeastern State University, which is my school. I'm in that Cherokee program. I claim that this is the most Native American university anywhere. Joanne disputed that, but 29% of the student body is Native American. And it's the only place you can go to get a degree in American Indian language, anywhere, which is pretty cool. And there's a lot of signage around campus now in the syllabary. You can go to Wikipedia in the syllabary, pretty cool. Or you can do Facebook in the syllabary. Right? There's Ryan Mackey, he's one of the immersion teachers. To give you a little background for this class, I just want to tell you I was a KU student, and that's how I know Arian. And I wrote a Cherokee reference grammar for my dissertation. I started in 2005. Go Jayhawks. it was very convenient field work because I worked with a native speaker here in Lawrence. So I could travel 10 minutes in my car and do my field work, which was kind of nice. And then as I finished, I got this job down in Tahlequah. And when I heard about this CoLang situation, I was thinking immediately, what speakers are we going to work with? So the first person I thought of was Benny Smith. And I called him, and of course he always goes to Colorado like most Oklahomans during the summer. So he was not available. But he told me he knew 2 women in Lawrence who were available during the summer to do this field work. And I'm telling you this story just sort of to illustrate the importance of networking or relationships, trust. When I arrived at KU back in 2002, I knew I wanted to work on Native American languages, but I had no idea which one. So I simply asked my advisor, I'd like to write a grammar of a Native American language, and he said Cherokee. And then he introduced me to the Cherokee community. And that saved a lot of time. I didn't have to go knocking on doors, saying, hello, I'm a linguist, I'd like to record you, which kind of scares people. But they had a lot of respect for my advisor, so because they respected him, they immediately trusted me, or felt like they could trust me. And we built up a relationship of mutual trust and respect. And so when Benny couldn't do this, he suggested these 2 individuals that I had never met before, but I trusted Benny, and he trusted them. So we met the night before CoLang started, and everything worked out great. They were wonderful to work with. So it's very important. So just use your connections and always be on your good behavior, because that's going to allow you to work with people. And this goes back to our informed consent as well. This is part of the process of trust and respect. So thank you, Benny. Here's Benny at the, this is the 100th anniversary of the founding of the school where I teach. So this is where they dedicated the statue and the syllabary chart. And here he is with the chief at the time and the president of the university. So this is a very important relationship between the tribe and the university. It's a public university, and they give $100,000 a year to the Cherokee program, which is pretty cool. Unique, actually. So this is how we met our speakers. We all had a wonderful experience, I would say. We all did different things. We all had different perspectives. This is the first time that you had ever worked with linguists, right? And it wasn't too bad, too painful. Sometimes interesting. And of course, during this month, I was proselytizing a lot. I was trying to persuade people to do Cherokee studies. It's a little lonely sometimes. There's probably only 3 people doing Cherokee studies right now. So I think maybe I could have 3 more scholars working on Cherokee. I asked them at the beginning, the first day, what should I do for my thesis, dissertation, conference presentation, journal article? Well, of course, the answer is
Cherokee.
Cherokee. It's the largest tribe in the United States. They're spending $5 million a year, lots of resources. There's an immersion school, there's a bachelor's degree program. There's lots of legacy material and archives. I was in Oklahoma City last month for the Breath of Life, and I popped in the Historical Society Museum, and they have all these microfiches. So this was one page that I printed off. It's labeled Cherokee Document, which means they have no idea what it says. So, there's a ton of this stuff, and I read the beginning of it. It's from Tahlequah, and it's from 1880. So if you want to do some research on Cherokee, there's all this stuff that's just sitting there that could be kind of interesting. Not just in Oklahoma, but around the world, actually. And there's 2 fluent speakers here in Lawrence who love working with linguists, apparently. Yes. So seriously, if you are in linguistics, or if you know people in that department who don't have a thesis topic, well, this is all ready to go. And of course, down in Tahlequah, we have the annual Oklahoma Workshop on Native American Languages. Yes, okay. Enough with the promos. Field methods class. It was different from normal field work in that it was very compressed. It was only a month, and there was a bunch of us, which was new for me. But I treated it like real field work. So even though we learned a lot, we got real data that we are going to use for real research. So this was real field work. So I really felt like this was a great opportunity for me, because I got to get all this data and I got to share it with people, and we got to collaborate. And there was a lot of, we saved a lot of time because we were working together. Here's kind of how our week went. Week 1, we started with a Swadesh list, which was really boring. So we stopped doing it because it was in alphabetical order. It wasn't the semantic fields that some of you started with. Basically, I had a plan, and then we just scrapped the whole plan, and we just went with what felt good. And that seemed to work out. It was very organic. Everybody had their own things they were interested in. We got some stories, some text right away. So we started transcribing those in the morning for half an hour as a group, which was painfully slow, but I think it was good in the beginning. But after a while, we decided it was easier just to do it as individuals and using Elan, which made things go very fast. So week 2, the idea behind week 1 was you were not supposed to look at any materials on Cherokee. Right? I came with all the Cherokee materials I could find, but you weren't supposed to look at any of them. So the idea is you're discovering this language for the first time without any biases. And then the second week, I give you all my biases, right? So I gave a little lecture on Cherokee phonetics and phonology, and there's a lot that's still not known about it, and a little bit on the practical writing system. And people started thinking about their projects already. Linguists started working in pairs with speakers. Probably some of you had this experience where the first week everything was done in groups, right? Because you weren't even sure what was going on. But by the second week, people started, they wanted to focus on their individual projects and ideas. And week 3, we did a tiny little ethnobiology. We spent a day talking about birds and bugs. And then we visited the Natural History Museum, which was cool. And we also went to the Spencer Art Museum and looked at paintings just to see what kind of creative type language we could get out of that. There's a great art museum on campus, by the way. And then one day, we just, they both worked at Haskell in the kitchen. And Haskell is the other university in town, the Indian Nations University, run by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So we were very curious to hear stories about their experience at Haskell, because they were there for 30 years, about, Georgia, 30 years? 40. 40, okay. And at first they didn't think they had much to say or they needed to think about it, but that changed quickly, and so we got a whole new genre I'd never heard of before, which is cooking catastrophes in the kitchen, which was great, and we got lots of ghost stories, because usually Haskell is very haunted, so we have a haunted racetrack, and a haunted bakery, and a haunted kitchen, and haunted dorms, and so lots of good ghost stories. Short little texts, which are nice to work with. Really fun, we like that. And then in week 4, it was pretty much every linguist for himself or herself. It was transcription madness. All we were doing was, we weren't working as a group at all. We were just, I would transcribe something and send it off to somebody and they would do something with it. But we were all working independently without any plan, but working together very well, kind of like a single organism, I think. We all had different goals, but we were all sharing stuff. It was very collaborative. Here we are doing the transcription, group transcription, during the first 2 weeks. So our techniques, we used some word lists in the beginning, some translations of sentences. Gretchen shared with us the wonderful website of storyboard prompts, which I highly recommend, and I think she'll show you those. Lots of times we reported stuff that just kind of came up randomly with digressions, which is a great way to get material. Conversation, games, which Joseph and Mary Chell are going to show you. This thing here. We visited 2 museums, which is a good way to get stuff. Not just museums, but you can go to bioreserves or a zoo, or there's an ancient village in Tahlequah where people are dressed up as they would have been 500 years ago doing arts and crafts speaking Cherokee. That'd be a fun place to take a speaker and see what they say about that. And then there's a Cherokee electronic dictionary, which I'm building online, so sometimes we would listen to that just for comparison or for different kind of data. Here we are looking at walruses. I don't believe we got the Cherokee word for walrus. Yeah, these are not real. And here we are at the Spencer Art Museum. If you have time today or tomorrow, these are right across the street, and they're free. We could have used more questionnaires. There's lots of questionnaires you can find, and I'm sure some of you did that. Originally, I wanted to do ethnomedicine, but we didn't have time for that at all. I like using prompts to elicit, including bringing in a toolbox with every conceivable tool in it and asking speakers, what is this for? What is it called? What sound does it make? What do you build with it? You can spend a couple of days just talking about tools. And it's more interesting because it's very tactile. And we looked at some Cherokee videos that have been made, some animation. We could have probably used those for some kind of prompts or elicitations. Here's what we learned. We learned some Cherokee. Yeah. We learned a lot about technology. So this was good for me, practicing with Elan or Flex, Prot. iMovie, was that what you used, Joanne?
Sometimes.
Yeah, so some video software, and we learned a little, or we downloaded Keyman at the end so you can type in the Cherokee syllabary, which is free for 30 days. And storyboard prompts, excellent. I really like this. I'm a big fan of this. It's a natural sounding story, but you know, behind it is the idea of getting modals or getting different grammatical things. We learned field method strategies, kind of what emotional intelligence type things, right? What to ask, what not to ask, how to ask it. Common sense things, perhaps. Informed consent, probably the least fun, but very important. And I feel like this was a very productive process. We just finished this up yesterday, and we came to a very nice consensus on what was allowable and not allowable. So this was a very positive process. And look how happy we are. And you can even see we made sure Ariane was in the picture here. You can see her. All right. Now you're going to see a series of presentations. Some of us might interject when we have something to add. But we're going to hear from Nancy about some phonetic.
Yes, and you can see that I am indeed this person wearing exactly the same. I've not been wearing this the whole 4 weeks.
All right, now you need a different computer, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I'll unplug this.
You're supposed to sing and dance now, Brad.
I'm not used to wearing these.
Put them on others,
Georgia
right?
are. I just have to do that. There we go. Let's see, how do you make this more big thing?
You're good.
Oh, okay.
Over there.
I was there? Okay, I'm sticking here. Oh, so.
My bad. Oh.
I don't think it's really bad. Well, Georgia and I are very accustomed to wearing microphones, but I'm not. Okay, so I'm going to talk about my adventures with student fricatives in Cherokee. First, I'd like to thank our two consultants, Georgia Keener and Ida Meacham, who shared their language and so many other things with us this month. They were really wonderful people to meet and to spend time with, and we really came to care about them and enjoy them very much. And they tolerated us. And also, I'd like to thank our instructor, Brad Montgomery Anderson, and my colleagues, Marie Chow, Joanne Joseph, Gretchen Saul, and Katie. So I came to CoLang with some goals about learning technology. I wanted to explore some new tools for data management and analysis, Flex, Along, Audacity databases, and map making. And I did, in fact, take workshops in the beginning on these and then had a chance to apply them during the last 4 weeks. So that was really satisfying. And I wanted to make the switch from the PC to a Mac. I started off CoLang sitting next to Leland all day, every day, and asking him, how do you double click on a Mac? So this is my first PowerPoint presentation with my Mac. First analyses with Caught. I had a lot of kind of things fussing back and forth, but I'm still in process, but it's been a good progress. My language goals for CoLang were to meet speakers of the Cherokee language and get some idea of whether it might be fun and interesting on a mutual basis to work together in the future. As Brad said, when you do fieldwork, it's really a long-term commitment, and you have to be liked and you have to like people. So I wanted, since I'm now teaching at Oklahoma State University, where I've been for a year, I wanted to investigate the possibilities of doing research locally rather than in Tibet. And so I wanted to see if this was going to work out, and I really feel very optimistic about continuing on with Cherokee. It's been a wonderful experience. I also wanted to meet other people interested in Cherokee, and that's certainly been fun too. I began to learn and learn about Cherokee. I wanted to identify some possible projects for future research, and I wanted to start thinking about ways that I could contribute to the documentation, preservation, and continued use of the Cherokee language. So some of my linguistic interests that I brought with me were interest in phonetics, studying speech sounds, looking at consonants, vowels, pitch or tone, prominence, stress and pitch, accent, and intonation. And I'm also interested in discourse analysis and evidentials. But I came during the course of the workshop to really focus in on the sounds of Cherokee, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So I'm going to give a brief presentation of the phonetic inventory, or phonemic inventory, more or less, consonants and vowels. I'm not going to talk about tone or pitch accent. We are still working on that. We hear it most of the time. We mark it sometimes. There's a lot going on. There hasn't been a lot of linguistic research on tone or pitch accent in Cherokee. And then there's also vowel length in Cherokee. Is it contrastive? Is it rhythmic? We haven't really been working so much on those aspects of the phonology either. I'm going to talk about different versions of the Swadesh list. Brad said that we abandoned that because it was so boring, but I suddenly decided that I had to be completely obsessed with it, and nothing interested me more than the Swadesh list. So that's really what I've been doing for the last, week and a half. It's just focusing on that. I also wanted to get high-quality recordings because if you want to do phonetics, you need good recordings. And I thought about some phonetics projects that I'd like to pursue, distinctions between fricatives and the possibility that there's geminate consonants in Cherokee that people haven't really talked about. So, sounds. Well, sounds in speech, air comes up from the lungs, goes through the trachea, comes up the esophagus, it comes out the mouth, and comes out the nose. And that's the origin of speech sounds. In order to modulate that sound wave, or the airflow coming from the lungs, we move the articulators, we move our tongue, we move the velum, and we change the shape of the vocal tract, the shape of the mouth, to produce the different consonants and vowels. So the consonants, we have constrictions somewhere in there. We make a closure somewhere in the vocal tract, or narrowing. Vowels have a much more open vocal tract. So here's a chart of the Cherokee consonants. A couple things to note here is that we have nothing in the bilabial stops. No p or b. That's pretty uncommon cross-linguistically. But I was looking at another paper on Cherokee phonology that Brad had emailed to me, the dissertation. And he mentioned, I didn't look at it too closely, but he mentioned that there's historical evidence in the language family that bilabial stops became these labialized velars. So k and qua may, long, long ago, have been sounds like p. So that's kind of interesting to think about. Also notice that there's no voice stops there. There's th and t, but no d. So that's another characteristic of the Cherokee consonants. I became particularly interested in the fricatives, the s, th, sh, hy, and p. And we also have voiceless nasals. I think maybe there's an ing I've heard once in a while. Once in a while I think I've heard the voiceless L. And we have voiceless, I forgot the voiceless palatal Y. I think that's not too bad. Maybe missing a few things. Brad is kind of looking at it skeptically. Here's a chart of the vowels that we found. These are phonetic, not phonemic. So when we were transcribing the narratives that we were all focused on, we used the standardized orthography, which simplifies it a great deal. So these are the sounds that we heard, but they're not necessarily contrasted. So my sudden interest in fricatives. Well, a fricative is a narrow constriction somewhere in the vocal tract. It's not a complete closure, it's a narrowing. And as air passes through this narrow constriction, the result is turbulent flow. So you can think of a river. If you have a wide river and the water's flowing smoothly, there's no ripples, and it's quiet. But the minute you narrow it down in a chasm or between rocks, all of a sudden it gets really turbulent and it makes a lot of noise, right? You can imagine, you can hear that noise. That's just what happens to the air coming out of our lungs when we create a fricative noise, when we create that narrowing. And so with some of the fricatives, we have turbulence due to that narrow constriction, and also because we direct the air against our teeth, which makes it a very complex sound in terms of waveforms and acoustics. So some sounds can be characterized as a complex but regular interaction of waveforms at different frequencies, like vowels or nasals. But this isn't the case for fricatives. They're very chaotic and random, and that's why they're noisy. There's different types of fricatives. There's non-stridents. These are kind of softer fricatives, like f and v and f and the and p. And then there's the sibilants, the hissy fricatives, s and z. Sometimes I thought I heard a retroflex sh in Cherokee before a k sound, like ushka, skull. It wasn't always there, though. In careful speech, it disappeared, so maybe it's free variation. But I'm interested in that. Post-alveolar sh and sh, j, and then palatal hya and hya, hya. Those are hard to make. So those are the hissy noises. They're much louder. And they're very similar to each other, but that's what I got interested in. So, I needed sounds. I needed words that had sounds. So I went back to the Swadesh list. I was trying to get specific words that illustrated certain things, and I thought, well, why don't I just get a whole bunch of words and see what I get? So I went back to the Swadesh list. Morris Swadesh was actually an interesting character I learned from Wikipedia. He did field work on more than 20 indigenous languages of the Americas. So that was a nice thing to know, that he was one of our people. And he got interested in developing the Swadesh list, this word list, because he was interested in comparing languages, historical linguistics, lexicostatistics, autochronology, determining language relatedness and divergence over time. In 1949, he was fired from the University of New York, following accusations that he was a communist. And he eventually wound up in Mexico, where he continued to work. So, what is his list? Well, it's a list of about 200 basic vocabulary items. These are universal concepts that we can expect to find in all languages of the world, more or less, because we all have water, we all have sky, we all have sun, we all eat, we all walk. So they're not dependent on culture. And Swadesh himself created several different versions, and he developed this as a tool to compare languages and determine their relationships and trace their divergence. So we tried to do Swadesh lists several times in class. Attempt number 1 was the Swadesh list in alphabetical order. Well, imagine starting off with all. I mean, it's such an abstract concept. Then you go to and. Then you get to animal and ashes, but then you're at. And you very quickly get to because. Okay, so this was really a tough place to start. Under F, you have are, okay, that, an adjective, followed to fear, few, a quantifier, fight. You get to the numeral 5, so you have all kinds of things mixed in, and it was a very difficult way to try to get any kind of rhythm going. And then attempt number 2, we worked with Claire Bowen's categorization by semantic field, but actually these fields are organized alphabetically. So the first group of words you'll find are adjectives. The second group are animals. The next are animals, products, body parts, body verbs, colors, conjunctions. Does that really make sense? Well, there's lots of alternatives. There's a paper by Holman et al. In 2008, and they came up with a list that's ranked. So item number 22 in Swadesh's final list is the word louse. It gets a star. It's in the top 40. So these are very stable in the languages of the world. They last for a long time. They don't change. They don't get borrowed. They don't change their form very much. So lice are very common the world over, and they don't seem to go away over the millennia. So all languages have lice. And then 42.8 is the way that Holman et al. Ranked the stability of these words. So 42.8 is the highest. So these are 20 of the top 40. That's just half of them to see kind of what we have. So these are some good basic vocabulary items. So attempt number 3 was, that was before I found out about that list, but I organized things by lexical category and sort of theoretical or conceptual complexity. I started with numerals, and we did nouns like animals and body parts and the natural environment, sun, moon, stars, colors, activity verbs, eat, drink, bite, walk, sleep. Now, it was really easy, of course, it was easier to do this than to go through these things alphabetically, right? The other thing I did is that and I have to thank Ida, because I worked mostly with Ida. She was extraordinarily patient. We basically recorded all 200 words like this week, pretty much, maybe one session last week, so it was pretty brutal. She was really patient and clear and thorough. But for the verbs, I got 3 forms, like he's eating, he ate, eated. So I got the present continuous, the past, and the imperative. And we as Brad said, we kind of wandered off in class, and so I think actually this is a nice thing for everybody because we have, you know, a whole bunch of verbs now in all three forms, and I started to see verb paradigms and patterns, so I think I'll have fun with that. And then I did some more highly transitive verbs. So if you want to look at the fricatives, you have to get some really good quality recordings, and so we used a head-worn microphone. I don't want to spend any more time talking really about why it's important, but the sibilant fricatives, sh, sh, and hya, are all a little bit different from each other acoustically. And phoneticians look at a slice from the spectrum and get a picture of which frequencies of sound are at high energy for that fricative and which frequencies of sound are at a low energy for that fricative. And so that's really how you can kind of distinguish them from each other, if you care. Okay, I do. I thought it was fun. So we used a head-worn microphone, and that provides the best quality recordings, reducing ambient noise and maintaining a controlled distance from the speaker's mouth. So this is what I was doing with prod. This is the word, he threw it. So you can see it in the second line there, that's the simplified orthography that we use, and in the bottom I put the individual segments there. This is a sound that has the palatal fricative hya. This is, he splits them, as in logs. So it also has the alveolar fricatives and then the palatal hya. Oops. And then this is a word that has the lateral fricative, the word for horn. So my objective, my idea originally was to do kind of spectral analysis of these fricatives, but I didn't really get there. But at least the main thing is that I wanted to get sound files. I mean, a week ago, I didn't even have the basic good quality recordings that I needed to proceed with this investigation, and now I do. So what's going to happen with all these recordings that we made? Well, Brad may use them in the Cherokee Electronic Dictionary. So I'm planning to, right now I have them in prot files, and I'm taking them out of the prot files and organizing them and labeling everything. And so I'll get them organized and then share them with everybody. So Brad may incorporate them into the dictionary. Ida and Georgian, they like to be able to play them for younger generations so they can hear the words and the sounds of Cherokee. And my colleagues in practicum might find them useful in studying verb paradigms as well as sounds and vocabulary. And then I'll use the recordings to learn more about fricatives and to investigate other Cherokee sounds. Okay, that's all I wanted to say.